Welcome back to another episode of the Meat Mafia podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we have one goal and one goal only, and that is that you, yes you, listen to this podcast and get at least one valuable piece of information that inspires you to go radically change your health today. If this is your second, third, fourth, or 100th time listening to the Meat Mafia podcast, we are so grateful to have you, and we are so thankful for your continued support. Before we get going, if you would not mind going and following us on all of our platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, Twitter, we would greatly appreciate it. This just allows us to expand our reach, and your reviews, comments, and feedback give us more and more things to think about and improve the show with. Lastly, this is a user-supported podcast and newsletter, and we would not be able to do what we love doing without your generous support and the support from our sponsors. We take great pride in the relationships that we've built with our sponsors and truly believe that they are the best resources out there for better health. Your support and their support, and you supporting them, means the world to us. If you are enjoying the podcast and getting value out of it, please check us out on the Fountain app below, where you can support us by streaming us sats or sending us support via our Fountain Bitcoin wallet. Without further ado, here is a word from our sponsors. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Carnivore Bar. The Carnivore Bar is a veteran-owned, animal-based company focused on bringing you the highest quality pemmican product on the market. Pemmican is an ancient tradition practiced by American indigenous cultures, and it's focused on simple ingredients: beef, tallow, and salt. It's built for grab-and-go snacking, and it's a great sort of travel, hiking, or school lunch snack. And it's really built for those long-lasting days where you can just run on basically no fuel other than just simple fats. It's rich in saturated fats and provides everything you need to sustain long-lasting energy throughout the busy day. In my opinion, this is a product that is an absolute must, so go check it out in the link below. Also, check out our podcast with the founder, Philip Meese. He does an incredible job breaking down the mission and the passion behind the company. And I think if you're interested in animal-based nutrition, Philip will inspire you with his product. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Holy Cow Beef. Holy Cow Beef is regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef raised right here in Lubbock, Texas. Regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished beef is the gold standard of beef, and Ann and Weldon Warren have made it their lives' mission to provide incredibly high-quality beef to their local community and beyond. They have been raising their animals this way for decades. In fact, they were some of the most influential voices for getting grass-fed and grass-finished beef in Whole Foods back when Whole Foods was a startup grocery store. They were influential in setting the AGA standards, which is the American Grass-Fed Association, so you know they are doing things the right way, and on top of all of that, their beef tastes like butter. Grass-fed, grass-finished beef provides a superior omega-3 to omega-6 ratio than your typical beef, or in other words, it causes less inflammation in your body. So you are promoting a high-protein, high-fat diet with this amazingly high-quality beef, and saturated fats are playing their critical role in benefiting your body through supporting hormonal functions and cellular functions. And if you're looking for the highest quality beef, look no further than Holy Cow Beef. Leave your butcher box, that Australian and New Zealand raised meat, in the cart and order from your friends Ann and Weldon Warren over at Holy Cow Beef. I almost forgot the most important part there. Ann and Weldon Warren also accept Bitcoin as payment, so go check them out at their website in the link below, and you can pay in Bitcoin or in cash if you're looking to save your Bitcoin. I don't know about you all, but I am all about rewriting the incentives when it comes to healthcare, and Crowd Health is doing just that. Crowd Health is essentially crowdfunding for healthcare with a small HSA component mixed in. Paying through the nose for health insurance you may never use, only to be turned away when you actually need it, is incredibly frustrating. Also, the exorbitant costs of health insurance has so many baked in premiums that when you compare settling your doctor's bills by paying in cash versus using insurance, the cost is astronomical. So crowdfunding allows you to settle your medical bills in cash and then get the funding you need from your group through Crowd Health. This is a great alternative to health insurance for people who are low risk, healthy people who just want peace of mind knowing that if anything actually did happen, they do have a pool of funds to pull from to cover their medical costs. The best part, my group is saving a portion of the monthly opt-in in Bitcoin, and the rest is in cash. So those savings are going towards actually preserving long-term value for my group through a vehicle like Bitcoin. We are really excited about this concept, and since the business model is predicated on an incentive-based healthcare, it is a great concept. For people with low risk, minimal healthcare costs, it is a no-brainer. Go check them out in the link below and use our promo code MAFIA for a discount on your first 6 months with Crowd Health. Ryan, what's going on, brother? Welcome to the Meat Mafia podcast. We're pumped to have you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, you come highly recommended by a good mutual friend, Scott, who runs the Carnivore cast. He had mentioned how you guys have an amazing episode, and you've really been making your rounds with like Dr. Baker, Dr. Chafee, a lot of these big carnivore podcasts. So, we're really pumped, man, just to hear a little bit more about your decathlon career and how you started going down the carnivore diet and all the success that you've had since then. I think that'd be a great starting point.
Yeah, man, it's just like been life-changing going carnivore and like being unhealthy and like not even realizing it. Like I wasn't super unhealthy, but still like not being able to do my sport because I was just constantly suffering injuries and just overall fatigue, and then being able to completely do a turnaround and win the Big Ten conference title. And like that was just awesome for me. And it just proves to me how powerful the carnivore diet was.
What sort of things were you dealing with, like health wise, that steered you to focus on nutrition as that like missing piece of the puzzle? Because you're like an all-American decathlete at Michigan State, but before that there was like these troubles or things that you were dealing with that could have gotten in the way of you getting that goal or those accolades that you eventually accomplished.
Yeah. So originally I think it was when for decathlon you do a lot of training and you don't get enough recovery sometimes. And so when I would be training and I would be a little fatigued, I was very injury prone, and I pulled my hamstring probably like 3 or 4 times. And I got a few ankle injuries that took me out of competing in my seasons of sophomore year. And also for my first and second years of competition almost. And so I think like the first thing that kind of guided me towards carnivore diet was just like me realizing that like I'm training so hard and my body is still like breaking down every once in a while. And that was a little confusing to me, why I was kind of like the odd man out when like my training partners were fine and other stuff like that. And then also my stomach started to get really bad. I was really struggling with some like digestion issues after my sophomore year of competition. And I think it was just because I was eating so much like rice and oatmeal, and just like all of that stuff was kind of like carving up my intestines, I feel like. And then I also was taking some anti-inflammatories to combat some of my injury that I had. And that combination like ended up just destroying my gut. And it took a while for me to recover from that. I remember like waking up in the morning and I just like couldn't even like put food in my mouth just because it would like hurt my stomach so much. But yeah, that both of those things kind of guided me to looking and researching nutrition, I think. And then I just stumbled upon the carnivore diet.
Wow, that's interesting. And in college athletics too, it's like there's such an emphasis on training, probably to the point where like most of us are overtraining, but no one's really talking about recovery, but definitely no one is talking about nutrition. Like I just remember, right? It's like you spend so much time strength training, conditioning, taking pre-workout, protein shakes, but no one's talking about like just the advantages of eating real food. And you just wonder, like, with some of the injuries that you'd experienced, could they have been prevented by eating more saturated fat or animal protein? I'm sure that's stuff that you think about, right?
No, yeah, for sure. And like most of the time too is where you're getting your information about nutrition is usually from like, for me, I was like, oh man, I want to get strong. So then I look up and I see these bodybuilders who are like the strongest people, and they're eating just chicken and rice and broccoli like every day, 24/7. So then I think in my head, oh, I got to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli. And that initially just kind of steered me down the wrong path.
Yeah, whoever invented the chicken, rice, broccoli fad, man,
Yeah.
they missed the mark.
Yeah.
Were you nervous at all when you started the carnivore diet? Just because there aren't a whole lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of doctors who are very credible who are doing it, but there's a lot of pushback too, and like not a whole lot of like athletes who are very vocal about their nutrition when it comes to like a carnivore diet. There's a handful, but I'm curious if you were like nervous at all about trying it just because maybe it could harm your performance.
Yeah, I think like number one, I reached out to Dr. Chafee and he was such a help. And I had been like watching so many YouTube videos of just all different like people talking about it that I had like some level of confidence. But then also like the state that I was in, I knew that like my goals in track and field were not going to be achieved if I kept feeling the way I did. And like I was not satisfied with feeling like crap all the time and like constantly being worried about getting an injury at practice. So I feel like I was just ready for that change to happen. And like the worst thing that happens is it doesn't work out and I'm just in the same place where I was,
Right.
The amazing thing about your story too is that it's like incredible proof of concept that you can be an unbelievable athlete and achieve the highest success and do it off of, red meat, salt, and saturated fat. Because I think that's like a common criticism of carnivore is like, okay, it might be great for weight loss, but as a high level athlete, how does it translate? So I think like having people like Dr. Baker and Dr. Chafee in the space who are amazing athletes in their own right is great. And then seeing people like you compete and win at the highest level is amazing because it's going to encourage other athletes out as well and see what kind of results they can have too.
Yeah. And honestly, there's like so many benefits for athletes, specifically when you're carnivore compared to when you're still eating like carbs and sugars. Like it's just crazy that anyone would ever say like, oh, you're eating like too much protein, that's bad for you. And it's like, it's just mind boggling to me that so many people are like under consuming protein and that's hurting their athletic performance right there,
Totally.
And like you were saying, where it's like you can be an amazing athlete when you like right diet for your body is, I think so many people are amazing athletes. They just don't even realize it because they don't get to experience that feeling of like quick recovery and just like amazing like cardiorespiratory health and amazing muscle health and all that stuff.
Equip's unflavored prime has one single ingredient derived directly from grass-fed beef protein. All the boxes. Go check them out in the link below and use our promo code in the description to get a discount.
Ryan, how quickly did it take you to heal some of the gut issues that you had experienced prior to going carnivore?
Yeah, so those gut issues were already like slowly going away because I stopped taking anti-inflammatories. But I do remember just like I would always be like super bloated after eating like my breakfast and my lunch. And like so lethargic, from all that just insulin pumping into my system. And there would still be times though where I would eat a meal and just kind of have to like lay down because my stomach felt weird. but like when I switched to carnivore, I never ran into that problem of like, oh, my gut hurts, like the only time that happens is if I eat too much, and that's normal.
Hmm. What was the reaction of some of your coaches or advisors who are kind of like, people who are in your sphere of influence as mentors when you said, "Hey, I'm just going to go eat all meat and see if this helps my performance"?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually like really didn't tell anyone
Really?
because I knew that it's unconventional and it might be a little risky to try some new diet, going into a competition. So I kind of just like kept it to myself for a little bit until I started like performing well and I started feeling good. And then I would like kind of talk to people about it and be like, yeah, like I'm only eating meat and like my body feels amazing right now. And and like eventually there was a point where like I like talked to my coach about it and he was like fine because he's like, well, you're doing good now. So like if you start doing worse, we'll talk about it. But that still hasn't happened yet, right? So
Yeah. It's amazing. And it's like, not only has it not happened, I mean, you're literally all American, winning the Big Ten, competing at the highest level. And also college is interesting because we just normalize things that shouldn't be normalized, where it's like you're eating the most nutrient dense diet you could possibly eat. And your coaches are like, oh, well, if you don't perform well, we can talk about it. But we normalize like drinking these pre-workouts that have like 400 grams of caffeine, or like going out and drinking on a Friday or Saturday, or like ordering a Domino's pizza. Like that's why college is so unhealthy. Like we just don't know how to eat the right way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's like people just drink Gatorade so much.
Oh my
And
God.
I just cannot believe it because like sugar, there's so much sugar in Gatorade. It's people compare it to eating like candy bars and stuff.
Dude.
And we know like when you consume sugar, you need more electrolytes to balance out that sugar. And so like if anything, it's more of a net negative that you're putting that into your body. And like it's just crazy to me that people are still out here thinking that drinking Gatorade is going to help them be more hydrated.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's interesting. I mean, and it's been around for so long that it's just become normal. Like we don't even really think twice about it because it's the first thing that your coach or like your team in high school hands you during the game. I'm curious if when you started to feel the changes with the carnivore diet, did you feel like you had a competitive edge, whether it be physical or mental, when you were towing the line in competition?
Oh yeah, for sure. I like just lining up like on the line getting ready to race and knowing that like I feel amazing. I don't need to eat constantly to maintain my energy levels. Like that constant energy is so crucial for the decathlon because you got 10 events, and you got 5 on the first day, 5 on the second day. And if you have to just be constantly snacking the whole time you're competing, like that is pretty stressful to try and plan that out. And like, especially if you're going to eat a lot of sugar and get that insulin release and you kind of start to calm down and your body goes into more of a rest and digest state when you're trying to actually get more hyped up and compete. And so just having that was huge confidence. And then also like the mental clarity part, and also having the confidence that I know my body's not going to get injured if I maximally exert myself in a race.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's like you're getting the physical benefits of all these incredible micronutrients, and then all this great saturated fat, calories, protein, and then there's, like you had mentioned, there's just this mental edge of just like staying consistent with it and disciplined, and just knowing that you are someone that can continue to eat the same foods, and then you're reaping the benefits of those. There's like this spiritual component that goes into carnivore, I feel like,
yeah,
right?
For sure.
Yeah. Ryan, what is like when you're competing and you have these events that are 2 days, what does like a typical day of eating or fueling look like for you?
Yeah, so what I was doing during my decathlons this past year was usually we start in the morning and it's like right before lunchtime. It's usually around like 10 o'clock. So I would wake up and I would eat a pretty small breakfast. because I feel like when I'm in a more fasted state, I'm way more like in the sympathetic nervous system, and my body is ready for that fight or flight. And so you're going to be mobilizing like more of your fatty acids. You're going to get way more energy. But I would eat 4 raw eggs because when we travel, it's not always like the easiest thing to just bring like a whole bunch of beef patties, but it is easy to like, for me, I just go out to a store, any store you go to, there's going to be eggs, right? So I would just drink like 4 raw eggs about, and then I wouldn't really eat anything else until like we would do the 100, then long jump, then shot put, and then pretty much around after shot put. So after like 3 events, which probably takes close to like 4 or 5 hours, I eat a little bit of pemmican that I make myself, and that is amazing because there's just so many calories in it, and you're also getting a little bit of protein, and I put a lot of salt on it too, so we're getting electrolytes, and that fuels me for the rest of that day for the high jump and the 400, and then I'll go and try and find a steak or go eat some burger patties somewhere, and then that's like the day of eating during the competition.
Wow. Yeah, it's such a unique event that I feel like it's almost like this mixture of endurance and like they're all explosive events. So it's kind of rare. So applying the carnivore diet to it is definitely like a unique approach and probably pretty unconventional. But did you see any like declines in energy when you first started it, or was it really just like something that hit right away that, hey, this is something that works for me, like I can make this work?
Yeah. Like I know that a lot of endurance athletes use like a keto approach, or they talk about going no carb for endurance events. And so like I do, like you said, a lot of like sprinting and jumping and throwing, which are all like very ballistic, aggressive events. And so that was like one of my fears is like, oh man, I'm gonna like lose out on like some energy. I might like slow down. And like, if anything, it's kind of been the opposite. I feel like my energy increased, and like, like especially at the start of when I became carnivore, like right away, I felt like my energy levels just increasing, and then also like my strength and speed went up. And your body, even though you're not eating the carbohydrates, your body's still going to create enough glucose for you through the gluconeogenesis to fuel all of your exercise and your activity levels. And so when you train at like a high level, your body's going to recognize that and produce a high level of glucose. And then, so yeah, I just got like amazing benefits with the energy.
Nice. Were there any specific tips that Dr. Chafee had for you when transitioning carnivore, whether it was like certain level of sodium or salt, or just things that like helped that transition and helped you perform as an athlete at a high level?
Yeah. I think the big thing was, no matter how much I think I need it, don't touch the carbs. And then also like incorporating a little bit more salt and electrolytes definitely helped. And then also making sure that I'm getting enough like of the fat to protein ratio, because that's the problem is like I was brought up, eating like a pretty normal diet. And so I was, on my understanding about it was like, oh, don't eat fat because it's bad for you. It'll give you like this cholesterol, whatever.
Yep.
And then, so like, it's just like almost natural to go to a store. You're going to buy a lean cut of meat, and then you're missing out on so many calories through that fat. And especially if you're working at a high level, you need to get a lot of fat in your diet.
What sort of fat to protein ratio are you shooting for? Because I know there's varying opinions out there. I'm curious with what you're doing with the decathlon, if you found like a secret sauce that works well for you.
Yeah. I'm a huge believer on just listening to your body.
Yeah.
And I get to a point where I'll be eating like a steak and I'll be eating like the fat and the protein. And then I might get to a point where I'm like, oh, like the fat isn't really tasting as good. I want more of the protein. Or I'll be getting to a point where I'm like, oh, the protein's not tasting as good. I want more of the fat, And so just trying to listen to my body is like how I judge it. But I also really try and have a lot of fat in my like my breakfast and lunch meal because I'll cook a pound of ground beef and 6 eggs all together. And I try and because like eggs are really good at like absorbing all that fat that the ground beef cooks. And then so I'll take a scoop of like ghee and I'll add that also. So I just get like as much fat as I can kind of in my first 2 meals. And that I feel like helps me in my workout for that day.
Nice. Yeah, that ability to be able to listen to your body and give it what it wants is so interesting. And it seems like as a society, we've really lost that ability because most of us just aren't actually consuming real food. So our body doesn't know when to turn off these hunger signals or even understand when it's full. But like, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people realize when they start to go carnivore, like you're like, hey, I'm basically eating like 2 pounds of meat a day. And maybe by dinner, it's like you don't even need that whole pound. You're like 3/4 of the way through the steak. And you're like, maybe I want the fat, maybe I want the protein, or like maybe like half of the steak is good and I just feel hungry and satiated. Like you don't feel this need to just continuously eat. It's like, you eat when you're hungry, you eat till you're full, and then you just drink water and kind of just go on to your next meal. It's like most people don't know what that feels like to have control over their appetite.
Yeah.
So,
And that's another thing too, is like being able to like eat and then know that, just because I ate less today than I did yesterday does not mean that I'm going to feel terrible or I'm going to feel low energy,
yeah.
Because I think I've really noticed my body has become so attuned to like the level that I exercise is the amount of food that I need to eat. And especially on my off days, I'm eating almost like a pound less of meat just because I'm not exerting all that energy.
Mm. Did you notice that your intuition or your just your ability to read where your body's at improved as you sort of eliminated those carbs and kind of like more processed sugar, refined sugar? Because personally, that's something that I noticed. Like I just understood how my body or what my body was asking for.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And I feel like being in tune with your body is such an important thing for athletes that like I think that's one of the biggest benefits of carnivore is just connecting with your body and understanding like even some pain signals like in like my legs will feel like super fatigued sometimes and I'll know like, oh, like I just need to increase my salt right now because like I'm not my blood is not circulating as well as it should be, or I'm just like really dehydrated. And having that ability, like especially while you're in competition, if you start to feel bad and you're like, oh, okay, what do I need? What do I need? Oh, I feel low energy. Okay, I'm gonna eat something. Or you're like, man, I kind of have a headache. Well, okay, I think that means I need some salt.
Mm. Is that something that like someone taught you to listen to these intuitive signals, or is that something you just kind of like naturally noticed on your own when you started following the diet?
Yeah, I feel like I've always been pretty in tune with my body, but when I went carnivore, like it was just I would notice a difference when I would eat food or when I would like drink some electrolytes. Like it would happen so much faster than when I was eating a normal diet. It would be like, oh, I feel terrible. Let me like try this. And then a few hours later, I don't feel as bad, but I still feel bad.
Yeah.
Whereas like carnivore, I like, and you bring down the variables, you either you're going to eat fat meat or you're going to do some water or salt, it's way easier to control.
Totally. Yeah. When you talk about bringing down the variables, I remember like when Harry and I played baseball together at Babson, like they would give you these meals and they would be like sandwiches or pizza or just basically crap that's loaded with carbohydrates and stuff like that. So I'm sure you probably dealt with that at Michigan State, just getting meals. So like, how did you get around that? Would you just have your steak like pre-cooked and packaged in a Tupperware container, or like what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So originally, like I was already, I was gluten free before I went carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already kind of having to maybe bring my own meals every once in a while because, they'd take a bus ride to Indiana or something, which is like a 6 hour drive. And then they're going to stop at Panera on the way there. And I'm like, what am I going to, I can't eat
Yeah.
anything there, So I was already used to like meal prepping a little bit, but now I definitely will like just cook some ground beef or steaks, put them in a Tupperware, and like I have no shame. I'll bring a whole cooler for like the weekend of just all my meals like prepped and ready. But also sometimes like if we're on the road and we're near like a Texas steakhouse or even like Red Robin, I can go in there and get burger patties or get a steak. I'll do that for sure.
Mm. It's cool. We were talking before the show and you mentioned the word discipline. And I think this diet really invokes a certain discipline when it comes to just like what you put in your body. But I also feel like discipline kind of transcends different aspects of your life. So like when you get more disciplined with nutrition, maybe you start, studying harder too, or you start working out harder. Did you notice anything like that when it comes to just like really focusing and fine tuning this area of your craft?
Yeah, I think if anything, like being carnivore made discipline easier in track because I felt better, I felt healthier, so it was easier to stay training harder. And then also like I had I had originally like tried to take cold showers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I went carnivore, like I feel like my body was able to generate heat faster, which kind of helped me take cold showers more. And
Yeah.
and so then like I'm able to do those two things better. And so I become more disciplined in those two aspects. Plus I'm disciplined in my meal aspect. Then I feel very disciplined in like most of my life. Then that does, I feel like, carry over very well to like schoolwork, and or just trying to like stay away from staying up too late or not stretching before bed and all that stuff is just like it's very beneficial to have a few things that you're disciplined in to make the rest of your life feel like it's easier to stay disciplined in those.
Yeah, it's such an amazing point. It's something Harry and I think a lot about because I'm sure that you probably had teammates or friends that were like, dude, why are you so strict? Like, why don't you just have like a burger or like have some candy or some ice cream or whatever? But they think you're being so strict, but it's so much more than just the food you're putting into your system. It's like who you actually become as a person through that whole process. And it's like when you set this amazing base for yourself through your diet, it just transcends to all these other parts of your life. Like you're mentioning, it's like, you're a better student, you're a better teammate, you're a better friend, you're a better son. Like it changes who you are as a person. And that's why it's like, that's why we want to do this show and interview people like you, because if people could just realize like just making that one change with their diet, they have no idea what could be waiting for them on the other side, which obviously it seems like that's something that you experience as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of a snowball effect too, where if you decide to do one good thing, whether it's diet or lifestyle, or even like you decide, oh, I'm going to start working out, it's going to have that snowball effect where you're going to feel like you want to do more and more good things and it just keeps going and going and going. And especially I think with doing a carnivore diet, like it's going to improve your health, but it's not only going to do physical, but also mental health. And if your mental health improves, it's so much easier to do the other things that you need to do.
So Brett and I, everything you just said totally rings home with all the stuff that Brett and I talk about basically every day. So it's just cool to hear you say that. Brett and I played baseball, and baseball is definitely one of these like really superstitious sports. Like we have all these things that we do to make sure that we don't, get back into a slump or we continue our hitting streak. Is decathlon like that at all? Is there anything that you are ritualistic about when it comes to your athletic endeavors?
Yeah, I think definitely for pole vault, which is for me like one of the scarier events. You kind of develop a little bit of a ritual where you do a certain thing before each jump, or like I know like some people need to put chalk on their hands before they vault, or some people need to hold the pole like a certain way before they start running, and it's all very like specific for the person. And I think it's that way for a lot of events, honestly, just to like get you in that mindset of like kind of feeling comfortable and ready to do that jump or whatever run you need to do.
Mm. Yeah. The reason I asked the question is like, it's these rituals are almost like a discipline. Like it cues your mind and cues everything for that one moment of you going after your event. So it's like you kind of set the foundation with how your like long-term approach is with nutrition and training. But then you have these like short-term things that you do right before the event to get you queued up, ready to go. So it's cool. I mean, everyone has their thing, right? Like all athletes have their things.
I think also though is like I'm trying to get away from like rituals because I think that they can be negative sometimes too. Like they're really good for getting you comfortable and confident, but I think also for me especially, like if I can't control some of the things in my ritual, then that's going to affect my mindset going into it. I don't want to have that ritual in the first place.
Mm.
Yeah. Like just having that faith that regardless of the variables or what you do, or if you chalk or you don't chalk, like you're still going to be able to put together your best race with the resources that you have on that day. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like where like a little bit of the carnivore diet comes into play too, is like a lot of people are very ritualistic with their eating habits before competition. Whereas I know that if I miss all of my meals that day, I can still put out an amazing performance just because my body has the ability to mobilize all the energy that it needs.
That's so
Which is such an amazing feeling to have, right?
Oh yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah. How do you think about like training and breaking up your time when you're doing 10 different events at such a high level?
Yeah. So thankfully my coach programs a lot of it for me. And we usually will do more of like a speed and hurdle day on Monday. And then you'll do some technical event like one of the jumps on Tuesday, and then Wednesday. Oh, well, also Tuesday you'll have a workout after you do some technique. So we'll run maybe like 6 200s. And then Wednesday is a recovery day. And then also you're doing a little bit of like throwing technique because it's a little bit less exertion. And then Thursday is another technique day where we're jumping again and working out. Or yeah, Thursday we jump, and then Friday we'll do a more aggressive workout with the running. So you honestly don't get to do all the events in 1 week, but over 2 weeks you'll get every single event in.
You were talking a little bit before the show about some of your future plans. You had some Olympic aspirations. How do you think about just like, 4 years into the future, or 2024 is right around the corner, but then, another 4 years is like another like moment of you being in your prime. How do you think about preparing over that long of a time period for those like core moments?
Oh man, I've been so focused on the end of 2024 and getting ready for that Olympic trials that like I've always said like whatever happens after that, I'll like make up as I go, you know. But I've definitely thought about like I think one of the most important things for training as like a track athlete is having a good training partner. And so I think after college, if I want to keep training, I'm going to need to find a good training partner to train with. And then also like I think maintaining a carnivore diet for another 4 years, you know, that would be so awesome.
Yeah. And it's only going to get easier for you too. We were saying this before we hit record. Like, I mean, you take all the excuses that anyone could say about not wanting to do carnivore off the table because you're literally a kid in college. So you're dealing with like not really having money coming in like you would if you had a corporate job. You're dealing with like peer pressure of your friends, your teammates, having a great kitchen probably because you're either in a dorm or like an off-campus apartment. So it's like you take all that stuff off the table and then you think about, you know, you and a couple actually graduating and being able to focus on training full time and like get the best possible food that you could possibly get. I'm sure that's probably exciting for you to think about too, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. And yeah, honestly, the carnivore diet is not as hard as people think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It honestly, I mean, if you can accept, like most people think that you're gonna get like palate fatigue, which I've never gotten that. You know, I think like eating steak and eating red meat is so satiating and tastes great. So like most people just think it's going to end up being boring, but I think like the boringness or like simplicity of it makes it's like very sustainable. You can spice it up and, you know, different cuts of meat or things like that. But honestly, like I enjoy every meal that is put in front of me. Like,
yeah,
doesn't get better than that.
I heard a really good quote. And it was nothing tastes better than feeling good.
Yeah.
So that's what I always say is like, yeah, okay, maybe I eat the same thing every day, but I never feel bad. You know, like I always feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I would take that sacrifice like any day.
100%. When you win the NCAAs, what's your celebratory meal? Is it a ribeye? What are we going with?
Oh man, I don't even if I could, yeah, just a nice big ribeye. If I could have like anything I wanted, maybe some bacon and
Oh yeah,
some duck eggs too. I really like duck eggs. I don't get them as much as I wish I could, but they're really good.
Brett and I are gonna have to come like tailgate and just have like a bunch of steaks on the grill ready for you.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
So Ryan, I'm curious, who have been some of your inspirations athletically or just personally? Because you seem like a really mature college kid who's just got your head on your shoulders. Like who's inspired you and gotten you to this point?
Oh man. I think there's definitely a lot of like really great decathletes to watch and see them compete and like seeing I look at them, see like, oh yeah, this is motivating to see how fast he ran this race, you know. But there's not a lot of videos of them just being like themselves, you know. So I feel like I do look outside of the sport a lot for a lot of my motivation. And like obviously there's crazy guys like David Goggins, you know, is like motivational, but I don't want to have that abusive relationship with my body.
Yep.
And but I think over the years I've stumbled upon like just some crazy athletes in their own sports. Like for instance, in the sport of arm wrestling, which is a pretty weird sport, there's a guy named Devin Larratt who's a master of his class, and it's cool to see that the way he loves his sport is the way that he like it's just his lifestyle, you know. He like lives all arm wrestling. It's like eat, sleep, breathe arm wrestling. and you can just tell that he loves his sport, and I want to incorporate that love into my training and into my sport.
It's one of the cool things about influences or mentors or whatever you want to call it is it's like, at first glance you think, oh, this person needs to do decathlon for them to be able to influence me. But like you said, they could be an arm wrestler, they could be a Navy SEAL. It's like you pick and choose that you really like, and then you can like integrate it into your own lifestyle and your own practices. Like that's one of the amazing things about social media is like we're exposed to so many amazing people. Like if you use it as a tool and don't allow it to distract you, like really use it as this valuable source of information, there's so much opportunity for like a young guy like you just to learn from and integrate it. And like, who knows where you're going to be in 4 to 5 years of just like consistent knowledge acclimation. Like it's pretty incredible to think about.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I would not be where I am today without YouTube and just being able to learn as much as I want to and as much as I can about any subject is so helpful.
Yeah, YouTube is amazing. I mean, the amount of information that's out there, you can explore all different sorts of topics and find a bunch of amazing perspectives from the highest caliber people out there. Mm-hmm. Like we're living through an era of like an abundance of information, but people are now like, I feel like most people are a little bit distracted by like the short form content or like the stuff that's like just distracting and not like, really pushing you. Like there's like full MIT courses on YouTube. Like it's amazing.
Yeah. And that's like exactly how I found the carnivore diet, was just watching YouTube videos. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. I want to learn more, and you learn more and more and more. And then like, I'm still learning more. And it's been like 10 months since I went carnivore, and there's still like videos that I'm watching and I'm like, whoa, this like makes so much sense. Like, how did I not see this before? And like, the more I learn, the more I can go deeper into it. And like, I'm almost at like this MIT level, like you were saying, of like, I'm watching videos about people talking about like your mitochondria's health based off of like how fructose affects like all this stuff. And it's like stuff people don't even like understand anymore. And like, just that level of understanding is so awesome to have.
Definitely. And it allows you to be an amazing spokesperson to the movement and really teach people about nutrition, because I'm sure, right, it's like when your friends and family or your teammates are seeing you eat a pound of steak, their initial response is like, oh, dude, you're going to die of heart disease or get cancer or something. So to be able to kind of like thoughtfully respond to that and talk to them about LDL cholesterol and how plants don't actually want to be eaten and how good red meat actually is, like it makes you a great spokesperson for the diet. And then you're actually able to convert other minds and maybe make them curious or interested enough to actually try this diet and get healthier for themselves.
Yeah. And that's like that's a really cool thing too, is like, I don't even like, I think some of the people that I've affected the most are like some of the people I've never even like specifically talked to them about it. They've just happened to see me post about it, or they happen to like catch a podcast or something like that. And that leads them down the rabbit hole and they start learning for themselves.
Yeah. And that's what you just said is I think the key. It's like the information gets out there and then it enables people to go learn from themselves. And I think all three of us on this call, being ex-athletes, like just that ability to kind of like see something online and then try to go apply it to your craft, or see a training partner do something differently and be like, oh, okay, that's how you throw a slider a little bit better with a little sharper break. Like all those things are just huge in terms of self-development.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big thing that I notice is like my desire for like constant learning has really helped me in life, not only like understanding diet and like sports performance, but also just like in my classes in school, like in life in general. So like it's definitely a huge advantage for having like these social media outlets to be able to learn as much as possible.
Definitely. And when you think about just like constant learning, if there's people that are listening to this that are, curious about going carnivore or experimenting with more red meat, are there any resources that have been very helpful for you that you try and recommend to people or try and point them in that direction of?
Yeah, I think on YouTube, definitely just watching as many podcasts as you can from like all the carnivore people, the whole community. There's so much knowledge and it's just all gold. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then also like don't be afraid to just Google stuff online too. And like obviously you're gonna get a mix of reviews and you're gonna have to sort through like which ones make sense, which ones don't. Oh, this article is written by some like vegan person about how bad red meat is. Well, like of course it's biased, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so like being a smart consumer is a good habit, you know, a good tool to have. But I would say just start Googling as much as you can and start looking up on YouTube.
Love it. Ryan, any life mantras you live by that you want to profess to our audience?
Oh man, there's so many. I think one of the biggest ones is kind of like the mindset, you know. And my grandpa would always say this to me. He still does. He says, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're probably right. And I think just believing in yourself and having that mindset of not only thinking you can do it, knowing you can do it is so powerful. And that's helped me in a lot of things in sports and in life.
Oh, yeah, it's amazingly powerful. You probably think back to yourself being a freshman in Michigan State, just being young and probably like a little bit immature, like even intimidated, just being there. And then like a few years later, like just applying yourself and, you're winning the Big Ten. I'm sure that's probably just an unbelievable feeling that a lot of people, you just probably don't understand until you're actually in your shoes, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, I honestly was like struggling a little bit after I won the Big Ten because that whole goal, that was my 4-year goal. And I did it in like 2 years. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, what do I do next? And so I think that's like another mantra I kind of live by is like dream big, dream like super big, dream as big as you can, because as soon as you run out of goals, you're going to be lost and you don't know what to do anymore, And if you have these huge desires and dreams and goals, you're going to constantly have things to do. Your life is going to be full of purpose.
Totally. So there was some shifting for you. So you went from like, all right, I won the Big Ten. I have another year left. So is that it's shifted now to like the NCAAs or like Olympics, just making it bigger, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, originally it was like my really big goal was I want to win the Big Tens and I want to get the school record at Michigan State. And then my like far off goal was like, oh yeah, I want to go to the Olympics, but it's not something I think I can do yet. And so now it's, oh yeah, I won the Big Ten. Okay. Now my big goal is I want to make it to the Olympics. I want to compete for USA. And like the far off goal, I guess now would just be like, okay, I want to win it. I guess I want to continue the sport. I want to the sport. I think that I want to develop a little bit of a legacy because I think track and field is not a very popular sport in America. And I think it's hard for a lot of kids to get into decathlon when they're younger. And so I think trying to maybe work on that into like maybe post career of when I'm done with athletics, I'll try to make the sport a little bit bigger and try and benefit more people than just myself,
I love it. I couldn't think of a better way to put a bow on the conversation. And Ryan, we just appreciate your time, man, and really looking forward to seeing what you do on the carnivore diet and your athletic endeavors. It's going to be exciting to see you compete this year. So I know Brett and I are both looking forward to watching you succeed and achieve all those goals you've set out for yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan.